All right, so just gonna do a quick review. Twin Strike. Oh, that's not Twin Strike. Okay, well, Twin Strike, fastest hitting skill that you have to deal damage. Doesn't deal a lot of damage and has rather average casting animation. It's one of the quick skills, which means it has some of the higher DPS. You can spam it, but not back to back. You usually need 2 or 3 skills to separate it, which is why, of course, you should be using Skill Sender with attack skills set on. Condensed Thorn, same. Condensed Thorn, same principle as it's another quick skill, but it slows for 5 seconds, and this lets you do something like, for example, if someone is slowed and then you sleep them, but I guess you're not slowed these days, but if I were to seal you, then you wouldn't be able to get away before I could freeze you, which is pretty useful. And then Spell Cutter has the interrupt effect. It also has the increased channeling effect, which is important against caster classes, and occasionally sends casting Throat Cut. And it also has the very important effect of having only 0.5 seconds casting time, as opposed to having a longer casting time and a shorter channeling time. And then there's Knife Throw, which deals a lot of cheating, so that's so a little bit more complex stuff. As you remember, it's you can actually do this after someone has slept, be able to hit you. You can get both hits in. So if you think you can kill someone with Deep Sting, Spell Cutter, and Knife Throw, even though it's not a closed lock, it'll actually kill them. All right, so today I wanted to talk about Slipstream Strike, which I covered last time, but I want to cover it in comparison to Rib Strike. So Rib Strike, interesting skill. And it obviously reduces the attack rate, which is pretty useful against classes that APS you, but it's actually pretty nice. But see, it actually has a really interesting effect if you keep someone permanently rib striked, and that is a lot of like Sin and Archer, they both, if they get interrupted by something like Knife Throw or Spell Cutter, then they will continue to auto attack for some skills. So, for example, if I were to cancel Spell Cutter, I would actually continue auto attacking you. And so if they're rib strikes, then that auto attack animation will actually last longer. So you effectively screw them over with their own casting time for normal attack. So that's why I like to keep rib strikes. If they mess up, then they will have a very long vulnerability frame. Next effect that's pretty obvious is decrease HP maximum. It's not a lot, it's only like 10%, so I don't really use it for the effect that much. So you have a couple of different places you could use it. The first place is where it's at the top of their HP. So like, let's say they're at 100% HP, and then that would be a good time to start with it. Especially against a tanky class like Barb or Wizard or BM. It's not too useful against classes like Sins that have Tylon for the HP effect, but the HP effect isn't that useful just because so much damage in comparison to their total HP. But it's pretty good nonetheless for classes. The second way you can do it, let's say that you get someone to about half HP, so I'm going to attack Dante, get him to about half. So he's about half right now. If I do this, then I tick his charm, but before his charm ticks, the 10% kicks in before his charm actually ticks. So he actually refills to 90%. So it actually refills his charm can tick. So that's pretty useful when you're trying to raise the charm. And now I'll cover the most interesting effect actually that I think about TT99. So if I look at the range of Slipstream Strike on this mob, so this is the range for Slipstream. But the range for Rib Strike is actually a little bit longer. You can move back and you'll find out that it actually it's a little bit longer. So Rib Strike and Slipstream basically are big attacks that are normal, don't cost chi. They deal a lot of damage, and they have a long casting time, so they have all the dangers that I've discussed previously. However, there is a difference. I will prefer to use Slipstream on some characters, and I will prefer to use Rib Strike on other characters when I'm doing something called a teleport attack. So if one of you, okay, I'm going to start attacking one of you. Okay, so I'm going to sleep you, and then I'm going to start attacking you, Chase. And then I want you to teleport away to a mob or something, and then continue running. So I'm going to sleep you. I'm going to attack. Well, I guess you didn't. So that would be something like a teleport attack, where you immediately follow up with someone getting away from you by using Shadow Jump and then Rip Strike. So for example, imagine a BM leaps away from you the moment he comes unstunned. You can teleport after him and then use a skill like Rip Strike or Slipstream Strike. So there's actually a difference between using these two skills, and that's because one of them has slightly longer range and the other one has slightly longer damage. So Slipstream Strike is useful to teleport attack to targets that have limited mobility. So imagine like a BM or something, or any class that's not frozen but still attacks, because you know they aren't going to walk out of range. I guess I'll do Chase again. So I'll freeze you, and you teleport somewhere else, and then I can follow, and I would use Slipstream Strike, because I know you can't move away. But now Dante, actually wait for cooldown. But let's say that they weren't frozen, or they weren't a really mobile class. Then you would use Slipstream Strike. But let's say they were running away. So Dante, just start running away. I can use Slipstream or Rib Strike, even though they're moving out of range, because the range is just slightly longer. So this is useful on hitting a last attack on a target that's moving away. It doesn't deal as much damage as Slipstream Strike, which is why I prefer to use Slipstream, but Slipstream won't actually work as often against targets that are moving away. Well, no, it just depends on the situation. So like if they're frozen and they leap away, for example, a BM might leap away once you've frozen them, right before they die, and then you Slipstream Strike. Or maybe someone is, slow. You know they can't get away as quickly, then you would use Slipstream Strike. But if a class is running away from you constantly, then you can use Slipstream Strike like that, or Rip Strike like that, because of just the slightly longer range. So that's really Rib Strike in a nutshell. Also, I want you guys to notice something. So it turns out that Headhunt's range, Rib Strike, and Tackling Slash actually outrange things like Deep Sting. So try to sleep me. Yeah, you can actually abuse range even though you have range daggers, which is kind of interesting. Life Hunter is another example of this. Okay, so if I freeze Dante, and I'm at this range, he can't actually sleep me. He can only freeze me, headhunt me, Rising Dragon strike me, sorry, and Rib strike me. If a player doesn't realize that, then they're going to waste actually like 2 seconds trying to use Deep Sting, and they won't be able to, and they'll be wondering why they can't do that while you're just attacking them, like so. Tackling Slash, Rib Strike, Earthen Rift, even Knife Throw. No, it's the same. But like, notice that these skills range actually quite a bit longer than normal. So you can actually range abuse even though everyone has range. You just have to know which skills have this property, and they are Stun, Dragon, Rib. Wow, I'm using the wrong keyboard. So you can actually range abuse like this. So for example, let's say Dante was trying to sleep me. He wouldn't, and he wouldn't realize that. So let's try, he kept trying to sleep me. He wouldn't be able to. So this doesn't also apply in 2 dimensions, it also applies in 3 dimensions. So sometimes you may get someone into airlock, so Chase, if you would just fly, a little bit above, and then drop, just drop. So sometimes you'll actually be out of range to do things like this, and you'll try to sneak them and stuff, but you realize you actually can't hit them. You can actually use the additional range on Rib Strike to hit targets that you normally wouldn't be able to in the air. This is just an interesting thing that you can do.